The tragic shooting of two National Guard members in Washington, D.C., allegedly by an Afghan national who entered the country under the Operation Allies Welcome (OAW) program, has ignited a fierce political storm. This incident has served as a critical flashpoint, immediately reviving and intensifying long-standing warnings about the national security implications and vetting failures associated with the Biden administration's rapid resettlement of Afghan refugees following the 2021 U.S. withdrawal. This analysis will summarize the core issue, analyze the underlying reasons and immediate consequences, and offer predictions and potential solutions. Summary and analysis. The core issue revolves around Rahmanullah Lakanwal, the Afghan suspect who was paroled into the U.S. in September 2021. He had a prior association with the U.S. government, reportedly working with the CIA, which is often a factor in expedited entry. However, his alleged act of violence has fueled the argument that the speed required to evacuate and resettle tens of thousands of Afghans during the chaotic withdrawal compromised the thoroughness of the vetting process. Analysis. Systemic challenges. The OAW program utilized a legal mechanism called humanitarian parole to rapidly move Afghan allies and vulnerable populations out of danger. While this was necessary to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe, humanitarian parole grants temporary, not permanent, residency and has less stringent requirements than the Special Immigrant Visa (SIV) program. Critics contend that the massive, hurried screening operations conducted primarily at overseas transit hubs like Al Udeid Air Base lacked the time, resources, and access to comprehensive databases needed for definitive security checks. The incident, therefore, is being framed by political opposition not as a failure of one individual, but as a systemic vulnerability inherent in the emergency nature of the program. Reasons and consequences. Reasons for the renewed warning. 1. Speed over due diligence. The primary reason for the vetting controversy is the sheer pace and scale of the 2021 airlift. Teams had days, not months, to process records, leading to the use of temporary parole statuses before complete vetting could occur. Mark 2. Use of humanitarian parole. This temporary status was chosen because the SIV process for Afghan interpreters and allies was notoriously slow and backlogged. However, it allowed individuals into the U.S. who still needed final vetting and status adjustments, creating a security gap. 3. Political weaponization. The issue is a powerful tool in the hands of the current administration and conservative media, aligning perfectly with a hardline, America First immigration stance. A high-profile crime involving a refugee confirms the worst fears for a significant portion of the electorate. Immediate consequences. 4. Immigration pause and review. The most immediate and significant consequence was the current administration's decision to pause immigration applications from Afghan nationals and initiate a comprehensive review of all OAW and Biden-era asylum cases. 5. Political polarization. The incident has exacerbated the deep partisan divide on immigration, with one side demanding stricter borders and vetting, and the other cautioning against a blanket condemnation of tens of thousands of U.S. allies. 6. Community impact. The Afghan community in the U.S. faces increased scrutiny and potential stigmatization, despite the vast majority being dedicated allies or refugees fleeing persecution. Prediction and solutions. Prediction. The political ramifications are likely to overshadow humanitarian concerns in the short term. The administration is predicted to use the incident to justify a permanent and significant overhaul of the refugee and asylum system, pushing for changes that prioritize national security checks even at the expense of processing speed. This could involve eliminating or severely restricting the use of humanitarian parole for large-scale operations, mandating full, multi-agency background checks before any entry into the U.S., likely requiring refugees to wait in third-party countries for much longer periods. Increased political pressure on Congress to fund border security and enforcement activities. Proposed solutions. 1. Hybrid vetting model. Implement a tiered, hybrid vetting process. For emergency situations, an initial comprehensive biometric and biographic check must be completed before entry. Final, in-depth security interviews and document verification should be completed within 18 months of arrival, with status holders placed on mandatory monitoring until completion. 2. Dedicated vetting task force. Establish a permanent interagency refugee vetting task force combining personnel from the FBI, DHS, DoD, and intelligence agencies. This specialized team would ensure consistent, high-standard screening capacity regardless of the political administration or crisis. 3. Increased SIV funding. Congress should fully fund and streamline the Special Immigrant Visa SI program to prevent future reliance on less secure temporary measures like humanitarian parole. Prioritizing those who serve the U.S. through the proper legal channel reduces the need for rushed emergency operations. 4. Community integration and monitoring. Invest in programs that facilitate successful integration and provide necessary services, mental health, job placement, for new arrivals, while also establishing non-punitive, trust-based community monitoring and reporting mechanisms to identify and address at-risk individuals early.